Remember the Portuguese wonderkid who was supposed to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo? The player who cost over 126 million euros and was crowned Europe's Golden Boy, putting his name on the same list as Messi, Rooney, and Mbappe? Well, guess what? At just 25 years old, he's disappeared from European football. The story of João Félix is a complete shambles. In 2019, he was the most sought-after talent on the planet. He was compared to Kaká, he was breaking records at Benfica, and Atlético Madrid smashed their transfer record to sign him. He was handed the number 7 shirt. The club thought they had signed a future legend of the game. 6 years later, he's been shipped off to Saudi Arabia. So what happened? How does a player with this much talent fall off so hard? This wasn't just a flop transfer. It's the story of a world-class artist who was bought for a fortune and then told he wasn't allowed to paint. So, how did it all begin? At just 8 years old, João Félix was snapped up by one of Portugal's biggest clubs, FC Porto. But the dream demanded immense sacrifice. For 6 years, his parents drove him 150 miles a day, 5 days a week just so he could train. At 13, his father moved him into the academy dorms, where a homesick João cried his eyes out, begging to go home. But he stayed. Then after all that sacrifice, it got considerably worse. In 2015, after 7 years in their system, Porto released him. The reason? They thought he was too small and his slight frame couldn't handle the professional game. This rejection would become the single most important moment of his career because the boy Porto, deemed surplus to requirements, walked straight into the arms of their biggest rival. After being cast aside by Porto, Félix joined Benfica. They saw the magic the Porto coaches couldn't, but they didn't just throw him to the wolves. They nurtured him. He was placed in the famous Benfica B team, the club's talent factory. At just 16 years old, he became their youngest ever player. He spent 2 years there, honing his craft, scoring goals, and leading them to a UEFA Youth League final. He was already a star in the making, dominating at the youth level. Then, midway through the 2018-19 season, a managerial change happened. The new boss, Bruno Lage, had seen enough. He made the huge call to unleash the kid, making the 18-year-old a first-team regular. And from that moment on, Félix went insane. On his very first league start, he scores in the Lisbon derby against Sporting, becoming the youngest player in the history of the fixture to do so. The headlines exploded. But his brilliance wasn't just in Portugal. On April 11th, 2019, he delivered a European masterclass against Eintracht Frankfurt. He scored a stunning hat-trick, becoming the youngest player ever to do so in the Europa League. The hype machine went into overdrive. Benfica legend Rui Costa tried to calm it down, but even he couldn't help himself, telling the media, "Already someone has called him my heir," or the new Kaká. The truth is that Félix is Félix, and the numbers backed it up. He finished the season with a staggering 20 goals and 11 assists, leading Benfica to the league title. Across Europe's top 7 leagues, he ranked second among all teenagers for combined goals and assists. By the end of the year, it was official. He won the prestigious Golden Boy award, beating out a field that included Jadon Sancho and Kai Havertz. In one unforgettable season, the reject from Porto had become the most wanted player on the planet. What a turnaround. After his incredible season, the hype was real, and Atlético Madrid did what few thought possible. They triggered his release clause, paying a colossal 126 million. It was the 4th highest transfer fee in football history. Atletico's CEO would later admit it was the biggest bet the club has ever made. But this move was a complete philosophical contradiction. The problem wasn't the player, it was the manager. João Félix is an artist, a free-roaming creator who thrives on possession. He had just joined a team run by Diego Simeone, the high priest of Cholismo, a footballing ideology built on defensive solidarity, collective sacrifice, and controlling games without the ball. Simeone's system demands that forwards are the first line of defense, pressing relentlessly. But Félix was constantly criticized for his poor defensive work rate, especially when compared to the man he replaced, Antoine Griezmann. The very qualities that made him worth 126 million, his creativity, his desire to be on the ball, were the opposite of the tactical discipline Simeone demanded. As his Portugal teammate Bernardo Silva later said, he went to the wrong place. At first, there were flashes of success. During their 2021 La Liga winning season, Félix was a key player in the first half of the campaign. But as the title race heated up, the first cracks began to show. A recurring injury didn't help his case. place. But ultimately, Simeone benched him during the decisive final stretch, opting for more defensively reliable players like Angel Correa and Yannick Carrasco to take his place. The warning signs were there. They paid 126 million euros for a virtuoso violinist and then told him to play in a heavy metal band. This was the mistake that would derail his entire career. By 2022, the relationship between artist and manager had completely collapsed. The conflict spilled out into the open. When asked by a YouTuber to name the best manager in the world, Félix simply exhaled and answered, "Pass." During a Champions League match, after warming up for half an hour and being asked twice to get ready to come on, he was left on the bench and angrily threw his bib on the floor. The club's CEO had to publicly admit the obvious. The relationship between him and the coach is not good. The situation forced him into a series of loan spells. First stop, Chelsea. He took a clear swipe at Simeone, saying, "I feel very free to play here." His debut lasted just 58 minutes before a reckless flying tackle earned him a straight red card. The loan was underwhelming, with just 4 goals in 20 games. Chelsea said thanks, but no thanks. The next season, he forced a dream move to Barcelona by giving a public statement to a journalist declaring, "Barcelona has always been my first choice." This enraged Atletico fans, who responded by burning his jersey outside the stadium. He got his wish and even got revenge, scoring against his parent club Atletico in both league matches and celebrating in their faces. But the same old story repeated. Flashes of brilliance drowned in a sea of inconsistency. Barca couldn't afford to keep him. Then came the most bizarre twist. In 2024, Chelsea, the same club that rejected him, bought him permanently for £45 million. But it wasn't for sporting reasons. It was an accounting move to help Atletico finance their transfer for Conor Gallagher. Unwanted by the new manager Enzo Maresca, his role was reduced to cup games and substitute appearances. After 6 months on the fringes of the squad, he was loaned out again in the winter transfer window, this time to AC Milan, where he was another disappointment. His diminished status was perfectly summed up when his AC Milan teammate Kyle Walker was caught on camera telling him during a halftime break, "Pass the ball, nobody here is Messi." It's easy to blame the manager. It's convenient to say the system was wrong. But what if the cage wasn't just built by Simeone? What if Félix helped build it himself? The most damning truth came from inside his own dressing room. "He has all the qualities to be an incredible player," said his former Atletico teammate Saúl Ñíguez. "But no matter how good you are, if you don't work hard, it's worthless." Many of us have tried to help João, but if one doesn't want to, that unfinished sentence says it all. This wasn't a manager criticizing a player. This was a teammate questioning his fundamental character. That sentiment echoed across Europe. Reports from Milan called his attitude horrendous. Even at Barcelona, fans grew frustrated. Online match threads were filled with complaints that he was the first to lower his head and stop pressing. This is the maddening paradox of João Félix. For Portugal, he often looks like a different player, hard-working and engaged. His infamous quote from the 2022 World Cup captures his mindset perfectly. "When the conditions are favorable, things go better." It's a subtle but clear deflection of blame. "It's not me, it's the system." But after failing in 4 different top-tier systems, the excuses simply run out. In July 2025, the European dream officially died. João Félix signed for Al Nassr. The announcement felt less like a new chapter and more like an epilogue. "I'm here to have fun," he said at his unveiling. "Not to compete, not to win the Champions League, to have fun." The kid once hailed as the next Ronaldo was now literally his teammate, a ghost of what could have been, playing in the shadow of a legend whose work ethic he could never emulate. And the choice to go there tells you everything. There was another path, a chance for redemption. His former mentor, Bruno Lage, was waiting with open arms to bring him back to Benfica, the club he called his home. But Félix turned it down. Why? Because Al Nassr offered him 17.5 million euros per year, a salary that was nearly 6 times what Benfica offered. He chose the money over the homecoming, the payday over the chance to rebuild his legacy where it all began. So, who sabotaged João Félix? There's no single villain. It's a cautionary tale of the perfect, catastrophic storm. Diego Simeone was the wrong manager, a tactical nightmare. 126 million euros price tag was an anchor. His agent, Jorge Mendes, likely prioritized a fat commission over the right career move. But in the end, the story comes back to the player and the choices he made. When he was finally freed from Simeone's cage, he still couldn't consistently fly. He had the talent to be the next Ronaldo Ronaldo, but his career will forever be a haunting question of what could have been. It's the ultimate story of how talent gets you to the top, but only character and hunger can keep you there. And somewhere in Madrid, in his office, surrounded by trophies won his way, Diego Simeone is probably smiling.